Yeah, so taking a look at GBA, this was the day after on Sunday. Same facility up there at the sports barn.
It was a
There.
great 2 days. And Sunday started off great. We started with pitching. The Sunday event featured probably 50-50 Missouri and Illinois guys. So there's a lot of Missouri guys to touch on, but we'll make sure we pass on all those notes to Kevin Mulder. Make sure he's got plenty of follows out there this spring. But no, it was good. I thought the standout kind of section, it's like session of the day was the pitching. We started the event with arms. We just had two mounds going, rolled through all the arms before we got into the position players, and just looking through the notes, like one thing that stood out to me because there were no 2025s, at the event. It was 26s, 27s, 28s. There were 13 arms that were 86 or better. That 86 number, that's to me pretty impressive to have that many guys. And then I think what also stood out to me was like there were a good amount of those arms that not only had the 86 or better velo, but like had arm actions that really worked, secondary stuff that, has a chance to be dynamic and like were, you know, high level prospects. So some of those guys, if I'm just getting right into it, that from Missouri, I thought really stood out. Dominic Pandolfo, Fort Zumwalt East, like I had a close look at him throughout his pen, and not saying he is this guy, but like he did give me some Ben Hess vibes. Not that Ben Hess, he's our number one player in the state. He was on a different level. Like he had all kinds of advanced offerings, but the way it worked, the way he moved down the mound, the slot, the secondary offerings just kind of gave me that vibe. And then Parker Sansone I thought was really interesting. And Tyler, you were the one kind of locked in on him. Brody Simile, another arm from there that if I were to guess, like, hey, 6 years down the road, and maybe Sanson's this guy too, because I didn't really see him. But who might have the firmest velo coming out of that event? Like just the way Simile's arm worked and how he moved down the mound. Like I'd like to bet on that guy to throw really hard. Michael Wolf was another guy to mention. He was up to 87 with a quick arm, and then Jathan Spain from Cape Central, I believe. Um, it was really interesting. He's just a monster of a human being. Has kind of a unique way he works down the mound that I think could be a somewhat of an uncomfortable at bat for hitters. And then it was upper 80s. He was landing some off speed, and then he also stood out as a as a position player. He led the event with a max exit velocity of 103.3, had an average of 94.7, and launched a ball 378 feet. Drew Parsons was a 2026 commit. I think he's already committed, but he showed well as a two-way guy. And then Colt Hopper showed well with the bat and ran a 6.82. So, those Missouri guys definitely deserve some love. But here on the Illinois podcast, we are going, on the bullpen, we're gonna focus, a lot of our attention now on these Illinois guys. A good number of standouts, a lot of guys we had known that it was just great to get updated looks at them. But a couple guys here that kind of came out of the woodworks a little bit. Maybe we had seen them, like glimpses of them here or there, and um, definitely worth mentioning. So the first guy, I think he's a fan favorite of all of ours. He was a former future gamer, came down to Georgia with Team Illinois last summer, was kind of a big winner just all throughout the 2024 calendar year. Like I remember us seeing him, pitch for Glenwood in the spring, and then we got an updated look at him in the summer, and that updated look of him in the summer was like, all right, this is a future gamer. Like we need to invite him here. He's got one of the best breaking balls in the class. We've always liked the way he moved, and then the velo was just kind of creeping up. So, I'll let you guys take it from there. But man, him and Dylan Huff, Glenwood 2026, uncommitted right now. I think should get a ton of love, but he gives Glenwood one of the top 1-2 punches in the state with him and Cameron Appenzeller.
No, I mean, he continues to be one of my personal favorites. Speaking of the Southern Illinois event, like that's when I first saw him was last year at that event. And I remember seeing it then and being like, okay, like that's how it's supposed to look. It was that easy and clean. It somehow gotten even more easier and even more cleaner. There's just so much to like there. He's a multi-sport kid as well, like plays football in the fall. He was up to 89 with the fastball, but like it's so much strikes. Like he throws everything for strikes. And he can really spin it. He's long been able to spin it. The changeup I thought was like better than I've seen in the past. So, man, I think the sky's the limit for Dylan. He was one of my uncommitted prospects of the week a couple weeks ago. Like, just I can't say enough good things about him. Like, just I think he's going to be really good as he continues to get older.
Yeah, and Tyler, I just he was on your mound obviously, and when he hopped up there, I think he was one of those first guys to go. I was like, I gotta look over here and take a peek and see this Dylan Huff slider because that thing is it's disgusting. It's all we've always seen it that way, and I just remember specifically that summer tournament you're talking about, Drew, that we saw him at. The like frisbee that he's throwing, like it was just on the video, it was nasty. So yeah, Dylan Huff, Glenwood 2026 there.
Yeah, it looks like his slider the other day was moving at an average of 17.3 inches. That's what it came in metrically on the horizontal movement scale there. But yeah, moving on. We're gonna drop a class. So, Dylan Huff was a 2026. The next guy we're gonna mention, next couple guys, 2027s. We've thrown out this school a lot, but Mascuda. Knew about Austin Muzo. But man, they've got a guy coming right behind him that I think is going to kind of be that next name down there in Southern Illinois to know. Could easily see him being a candidate to make, big velo jumps in the future. But Darren Klein, 2027, Mascuda, uncommitted, 6'1", 165 pounds, and I'm kind of throwing out some comps here, but one guy that as I'm watching him move down the mound, it's really easy. It's a balanced delivery. It's kind of like a walk in the park for him, going through a bullpen, which honestly is like what you're looking to see. Like you want guys that are, throwing, easy, balanced, controlled, polished bullpens, with high quality stuff. And it reminded me of Zach Lee. I want to say he was a 2019 grad out of Effingham, went to Kentucky. Now he's pitching in pro ball. But the slot, it's like a low 3/4. He gets that sink on the fastball. And like right now, it looked to me like his fastball changeup might be slightly ahead of the breaking ball, even though he showed feel for the breaking ball, had quality spin or at least action and shape to it. But that's kind of exactly how Zach Lee was. Like he was a fastball changeup guy. The breaking ball was more of his third pitch. But I think he's a guy that we're going to have to get multiple looks on throughout this year. And he emerged fully as a future game follow for me. Going down the list of 2027s, Cycraft. We mentioned DeCoin High School. Guy shows up at Southern Illinois. It's from DeCoin. It's like, wow, okay, not only did they have Cy, they had this guy. We've long known about Cy. He's been a kind of a two-way guy, done multiple things at events in the past, but man, it's hard not to love the ceiling on the mound, just with the movement patterns and the arm strength. Like he's always had above average arm strength, and it just keeps ticking up. That's really what I saw, out of his bullpen was kind of the same guy, but just the velocity keeps going up. And I want to say he topped at 89 at this event. For me, it was a little bit of a scattered pen, as far as just the command. Like he was showing control, but not command. And I think that now will be the next thing to see out of Cy is like the pitchability. Can he go 2-0 breaking ball against a good hitter? Can he go 2-0 changeup? Can he throw a 3-1 fastball and put it where he wants it when a guy's expecting a fastball? So different things like that, was kind of what I took away from Cy, but I thought overall really impressive performance.
And I think another takeaway with Cy is like we had him out at our super sophomore games this past summer. But I feel like physically he's also seen a tick up there. Like the lower half to me is like noticeably stronger. So he's definitely been putting some work in the weight room. Like it's very noticeable. So I'm sure that's been a big component of his velo progression.
No, it's a great call out because I think it's maybe the easiest way to tell somebody's work ethic with what we do. Certain guys we're gonna know better than other guys. Like we're gonna have seen them a bunch, but like a Cycraft, all right, let's say we see him in 2024 and then we see him again for the second time in 2025. Like what happens to the frame tells us a lot about the work ethic. Whether a body, that's kind of questionable gets worse, or if it trims up and gets better, or if a guy that, is a little leaner and can use some strength, if they actually add noticeable strength, like then they're really getting after it. Because for some guys, like we mentioned somebody earlier in on this podcast about how they seemed stronger, but the weight really didn't change. Like everybody kind of is different with how they show their muscle, and a lot of guys can put on 20 pounds and you can't really tell. So with Sidecraft, like being noticeably stronger, I think that says a lot. So really good to see him and clearly getting after it down there in DuQuoin. Next guy, this guy was on your mound, Gavin, but
Yep.
gosh, going back through, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have, and I think we all kind of came to the agreement of having two parts to this podcast, is we had a lot of stuff going on last week. And it gives us a chance to really actually sit down, breathe for a second, watch some of these videos, look through all of our notes, make sure we're on it, and then with that being said, like I was able to get a look at Matt Morris because I saw Triad, I saw 2028, I saw the grades we had on him. I was like, I got to watch this guy, and could not have been a bigger fan.
Yeah. It was just very easy, loose, and Drew, I think you added this, but it's perfect, balanced, controlled, repeatable delivery. And so he's got the movement patterns that look right. And then you just watch his pen, and it's just very polished again for a 2028. Like we had kind of mentioned about Kaufman before, but Morris just a lot of strikes. He pounded the zone. The velo is not like, again, eye-opening. It's not going to be something crazy yet, and that's fine. But the action on the curveball was good. Had 11-5 shape, and he worked it down. And then he had a slider that had kind of similar actions, and then a changeup, and he worked that low and had fade and depth. So, yeah, Matt Morris is going to be one to follow out of Triad. Like plenty of these other guys that we've been mentioning, like just add them to that list, and just keep tracking them as the years go on, as their careers go on. So, yeah, Matt Morris, 2028 from Triad.
Well, and you mentioned like doesn't have crazy velo, but he's up to 81. Which for me is well above average for a 2028. So he's on a great trend as far as that's concerned. He has a great foundation. You mentioned all the things about his delivery and the cleanliness to the arm action. And then you look at the frame, and I pulled it up because I just want to make sure, but he's 6', 160, and it's kind of that long, higher waisted, young look that we think is just going to only tick up moving forward. So definitely a candidate, Matt Morris, for like, hey, arrow only going up throughout high school. Would not shock me if by the time, he's a junior, senior, we're talking about him as a high level guy. Next guy on the list, like we've talked about him hopefully a lot on this podcast because he's one of my favorite guys in all of Illinois. We had him at the Future Games last year as a two-way guy, but Hunter Ball out of Edwardsville, 2026, still uncommitted, still the same old awesome freaking baseball player that we've always seen. I could not be a bigger fan of Hunter, the way he goes about his business. We first saw him on the mound on Sunday because that's what we did first, and same guy, tons of pitchability. Love the actions and mannerisms and the way he just contorts himself on the mound. 84, 85, touching 86, quality spin, feel for everything. Like as polished as it gets for me on the mound. Hey, if I mentioned Austin Muzo, like if you got to go win a game, who are you giving the ball to? Hunter Ball's on that list for me as well. So that's what I had on him on the mound. I saw some of the position player stuff. I got to watch him do defense, and man, he can make all the plays. He can throw from all angles. He's comfortable on the move. He's exactly, for me, how you would draw it up. Fundamentally sound, but has a little action to him as well. And I love the way the arm plays across the infield, and just a huge fan. So that's what I've got on him. And if you guys want to add anything, feel free.
Yeah, Drew, and I would have said the same thing for his pitching. But one thing I just wanted to mention, I was on defense, and I think it was last week, Drew, that you had mentioned something about or maybe it was on one of our calls. I can't remember exactly, but you were talking about just the way that a guy carries their glove. You can tell hey, this guy's gonna be a good infielder. He knows what he's doing. And when Hunter walked out there to shortstop to take his infield defense, you could just tell. He just carries his glove the right way. The dude's confident. He's not worried about a ball getting past him. He's going to get every ball. whether it's to his left, right, right at him, whatever it is. He's got to get a bad hop or something. Like, he just has a very confident glove on the infield too. Like, you know that like you can trust this guy defensively, and it was really, really good up the middle.
Well, and one thing I think you're always kind of looking for out of any athlete, I would say, whether it's baseball, whether it's basketball, golf, is like unwavering confidence and the right kind of confidence. Because I think a lot of it can be, can easily be taken over to like arrogance or fake confidence. Somebody who tries to portray that they're confident, but really they're not. He is so self-assured, at least that's the way he carries himself, is he's got that inner confidence that's unwavering, and he knows he's a good player. And that's what it takes, like, for any baseball guy. First off, to be able to handle, failure, you got to be confident, because it will make you question that confidence. And tough stretches are tough to deal with in baseball. But no, Hunter Ball's got it. I love that call out. And another Edwardsville product. Unless you guys want to touch on Hunter Ball and his bat or anything anymore, but another Edwardsville product that we were able to have down at the Future Games last year, and we were kind of loaded with arms and who all we could take, and Chase was willing to come down and throw one inning at the Future Games last year. First off, his willingness to be able to do that always stood out to me. He understood the opportunity getting to throw in front of those schools, and he took the most out of it. He threw against Team Missouri at the Future Games and carved them up. And I'll never forget the look he gave coming off that mound, because I bounced out of the dugout. I'm going to, just dap him up with a little fist pump. And he is mumbling under his breath, basically talking some competitive words about Team Missouri, or maybe just his performance, and it immediately hits you like, this guy's built a little different. Like, this guy is ultra competitive. He's not out there worried about how many radar guns are behind the mound, or not behind the mound, but behind home, and how many eyes are watching him, or what the moment is. Like, all he cared about was dominating on the mound and dominating the hitters for Team Missouri. And like, I will never lose that visual. And man, he carried Edwardsville to the postseason and the state finals. He was an all-state selection for us. And just continues to be that same guy that we have seen. So sorry to get so long-winded on the things we've seen in the past, but man, he deserves it. He deserves that to be shouted out to the world, because Chase Milburn is an ultra competitive guy. And I know we only saw him in a bullpen setting here, Gav. So,
yeah, I mean, the bullpen, it's kind of the same kid that we've always seen. And, I know that I think throughout the winter we've seen some things that maybe his velo has been higher or whatever, but today at this event, he was up to like 85. But yeah, the kid just competes, throws strikes. He's got a good breaking ball. So, again, we'll be out to see Edwardsville this spring. We'll be out to see Chase this spring. So, uncommitted kid, uncommitted 2026, and he's competitor. Had really good stats last year too for Edwardsville. So yeah, Milburn, Edwardsville 2026. Next guy though, Andrew. I guess you guys were kind of on the same mound together. Go ahead and get in there.
Yeah, I was trying to bounce around as much as I could, go to see where the top arms were, on each mound, and there were a lot of times where like I had to watch both mounds because there were two really good mounds going at the same time. Maybe trying to get these guys to alternate so I could see each pitch. But yeah, Sam McCollum definitely I thought deserved a shout out from this event. Another 2026, it's uncommitted, goes to O'Fallon. Tyler, you mentioned how O'Fallon always has arms. This I think is going to be a good one for him, along with Tyson Philowa. 86-88. I like the way the ball comes out of the hand. It's got that true four seam, gets some carry to the fastball, and then he showed some feel to spin the slider at like 74, 76, and also showed a changeup with downer, to it. So, like, kind of showed the chance to be a starter with 3 above average pitches, and he's another one where I just thought the frame looked very physical. Like, he's been getting after it in the winter. So yeah, Tyler, you may have had a little more in-depth look at him.
Yeah, he was a big winner for me at the state games. He was on my mound during the state games last summer, and I just feel like there's some polish there, like some real feel to pitch. So, no, I mean, you touched on everything else with Sam, like another guy, just earmark, we got to go see this spring. But another kid from O'Fallon that really popped for me was Trey Haraski, left-handed arm that is the younger brother of Dane Haraski, who's a highly athletic guy for O'Fallon. He's going to Central Missouri. Like, he's ran like a sub 6'5" for us in the past. So there's some twitchy athleticism in that family, and like Trey was an athletic mover down the mound, athletic, quick arm. But just really wanted to touch on that with Trey. Like, he's a freshman. Excited to follow him for his
same kind of
high
guy
school career.
in the batter's box too, Tyler. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
No,
just
you're good.
athletic. Like, you got to follow it. The way Dane runs and can defend and all that as an older brother, like, all right, Trey, you're a little different because you're a left guy. So that adds its own kind of intrigue in its own way. But let's keep going with these O'Fallon guys, because the last one here we want to mention is Lavin Toll at 2028. I saw him warming up, and I just thought it would look interesting the way the body moved and the arm worked. Not sure how it carried over to the mound.
Yeah, just a left-handed arm, intriguing guy to follow this year moving forward in the 28 class. He moved well, clean arm action, and kind of a smaller frame, but he'll continue to hopefully build on that and get bigger, get stronger. So yeah, Lavin Toll, O'Fallon 2028.
All right, and we
Go ahead.
our doc here, we've got more names to mention, but we're on this O'Fallon kick, and I'm going to keep us on this O'Fallon kick.
Yeah.
So Caleb Weber, a 2026, was another name we had written down that showed well. But then O'Fallon also had Anthony Perez, left-handed pitcher, also left-handed bat. Like, I always have liked him on the mound. I think there's like a lot of upside. It's a little raw, like it's needs like some polish to it, but it's left-handed. The frame looks right, and then he gets into the box, and I'm working with left-handed hitters on the day, and it made me think, like, man, you might be more of a hitter, because it was like the same kind of rawness, but he was on the barrel. There was some, like, the way he was leveraging the ball to the pull side with elevation. I was like, okay, like, this is very interesting as a two-way guy. Just a two-way follow, see whatever the heck, ends up being his best thing down the road. But yeah, did you guys have anything on Caleb Weber?
I want to touch on Perez real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. I remember seeing him at Kickoff Classic last spring with the bat, and I really liked it. There was one at bat in particular. The game I was seeing, it was a really close game. He was a sophomore at the time, and he's facing this really high velo arm, who was a little erratic, but he stayed in there. It was a really competitive at bat, and then he just laces a double. Like, again, it was a high velo guy. Just seemed like the moment wasn't too big for him. So I've long been a fan of the bat. So it's, really good to hear that you were as well. So, no, Gav, go ahead and you can move over to Weber.
Yeah, Caleb Weber, he's a right-handed pitcher from O'Fallon at 2026, and the frame really stands out. That's like the first thing that I noticed. And I actually remember seeing him at past events, but he's 6'3", 185, is still very wiry and like a lot of room to add strength still, it looks like. And he's kind of a stretch-only guy and interesting mover. He's up to 83 or 84 miles an hour-ish. Changeup worked on the arm side a lot, and it had fade and depth to it. And then his curveball had 11.5 shape. So an interesting arm there to know for O'Fallon. But the next guy I want to talk about is left-handed pitcher Ben Sink from Father McGivney. He's a 2026. And he's got like a compact, like very strong looking frame. And I was telling the guys before, he reminds me of like Cody Del Favro kind of from Morris, who is now at Parkland. And he was actually...
I'm going to shout out 3A IHS
Yeah.
BCA 3A Player of the Year. Yeah. So for anybody out there that doesn't know, he put up huge numbers his senior year. Cody Del Favro did. But yeah, keep it going.
And no, yeah, Cody was one of those guys that was a gamer. So we'll see if Ben Sink is that guy as well. I have not personally seen him a ton in game, but with the fastball, he was 84 to 86 miles an hour. His slider had a pretty high spin, like above average spin at average 25, 55 RPM. Sat in the low 70s, and then his changeup was 78 to 80 with depth and fade. And he's just a simple mover, and he honestly, again, kind of moves like Del Favro did on the mound. Like, it's just kind of that simple mover with like a clean and quick arm. It's kind of more compact. It's not that long, as long and loose. But then the next guy that I wanted to talk about to round out these arms is right-handed pitcher Aiden Sirocco from Staunton. He's a 2028. And again, simple mover, but his arm was a lot more compact and short, like a shorter arm action. He was like, I was watching the video again today, and he landed his curveball for strikes a lot, and it had like 11.5 shape, and he just had like really good feel for like the lower half of the zone, and it was sharp at times. And then he also threw a changeup again, had some depth, some fade to it. But another 2028 from this event and this weekend as a whole to follow and put on our list. But I think that Drew, go ahead if you have.
Oh, I
anything,
mean,
but I think that wraps up.
the cool
arms.
thing is, Gavin, like we just talked on arms for how long, and we could probably keep going if we wanted to. We're having to cut some guys off here. So, but we got to get to the bats, and goodness gracious, like we talk about Mascuda, and I feel like they elevated themselves this weekend. But Fallon did the same thing for me because we know they got Connor Blue. Like Connor Blue is one of the top arms in the area, in the state, in the Midwest. Like especially when he's right and he's healthy, you're looking at a low 90s righty with one of the best breaking balls in the class. And then they've got all these other pieces coming, and one of my biggest winners from the weekend was Asher Cantu, O'Fallon, catcher. And maybe I'm just a sucker for like really impressive frames or something, but it was a pro body walking around the facility. Like that is a pro body. So kudos to him, like getting in the weight room and just continuing to add to his physique because he has long been a impressive looking frame. But he also had some stuff to go with it. Like offensively, he stands in the box with presence to him. And he's not on the barrel every single time, but when he is, it is ultra loud. It is usually elevated contact to the middle pull side of the field, and he put up big metrics. Like he had a 100.9 max EV. He averaged 90.7. So like when that ball is coming off the bat, it's coming off the bat hard. And then he also had a max distance of 347. We had good defensive notes on him. I was watching him throughout the bullpens, but to me, that's just a guy that's continuing to work on his craft. Like you can tell he's putting in work, especially watching his swing from last year, and seeing kind of how it has cleaned up a little bit to this year, the overall action to, him defensively, the arm action, all of it. So he's clearly working on it. I'm a big fan. I'm a believer. And then also another 2026, and I don't know, I hope I mentioned that Cantu is a 26, but Carson Bauer, like really stood out to me from a ceiling perspective. Like there were a couple guys, this past weekend where Jack Rolvis being one of them from Father McGivney, where it's like, hey, it's okay to not be, at your ceiling at 16 years old. Like it's okay to be a long way away from your ceiling at 16 years old. Like honestly, that's more exciting to me because I really liked Carson Bauer. I thought the swing, it plays the way it should play. Like there's fluidity, that there's freedom in the hands. He's got loose hands and currently not a ton of thump off the barrel. And all that's going to do, you look at the long levered frame that he has, like it's only going to get stronger. There's only more thump to come. He ran a 7.2 360, which is only going to get better. I loved the look, and I just think he's a guy, man, 4 or 5 years down the road, like when he finally comes into his own, that's going to be a guy to know. And he's a guy to know right now and a guy to follow, but I just think there's so much more to come.
Well, a couple winners for me, bat-wise, and maybe the biggest winner of the entire event, Braden Forney, a catcher, 2026 out of Belleville West, uncommitted. We started the day off, like Drew said, we were starting with Pens, and he's one of the first catchers to start, and he is just absolutely getting after it, blocking willingly, right? Like, people listening at home are probably like, well, yeah, he's a catcher, he's supposed to, but like, it's really easy in a bullpen setting to just kind of low fit and be like, maybe try and pick the ball or something. Like, he is an aggressive and willing blocker, and as a pitcher, like, I love to see that, a guy that, in a bullpen setting is willing to work that hard for the pitcher. But that's just the catching stuff. Like, he also had a 1.8 pop during defense, 81 miles an hour out of the chute. But the bat, had some barrel strength there as well. Averaged 87.7 mile an hour with the bat. Topped at 97.7. 268-foot average distance and peaked at 366. So there's some juice there as well. So I think that's a guy that college coaches in the area and across the state are probably going to earmark to go out and see this spring and summer. And Drew, I don't
Could
know if
not
you had
agree
anything
more.
else.
Could not agree more. No, and like I mentioned it with the guys who showed well on Saturday behind the plate with Brayman and Max Greamy, and then you throw Braden Forney in the mix, you throw Asher Cantu in the mix, like get down in that area if you need some catchers. Like, and they're kind of all a little different. Cantu's got a left-handed bat. I don't know if I mentioned that. So he's got like some left-handed thump, but Forney to me, you're not going to get a better defensive catcher. As far as who would a pitcher want to throw to, as far as the look he gives to you when he's setting up behind the plate, I was watching bullpens and it was a college catcher back there. That is what a college catcher looks like when they're receiving bullpens, and just receiving in general. So kudos to Braden Forney because the offense I think it keeps getting better. I watched his video too. Like he's very spread out at the plate. He tries to keep it very simple, very direct to the ball. But man, he's gonna be a catch first guy, and that catch first is really good. So he stood out for me as well, Tyler.
Then my next guy I wanted to touch on here that's on our list is Cale Duggar, a freshman out of Staunton. Huge upside here for me. Right-handed hitter, but it's 5'11", 145. Like, has a ton of ways to go in that frame. Like, felt like his shirt was too big for him and his pants were too big for him. Like, there's a ton of room left to go there. But really like the swing. Again, just an upside play for me. But there's a familiar name that's next up on this list. I don't know if Drew wants to touch on this guy, but Omar Avalos.
Yeah, I mean, he's long been a performer for us. Junior future game guy for us a couple of years back, playing for Team Illinois down there in Georgia. Can really patrol center field. And then it's a left-handed swing that like seemingly is always on the barrel in game. Which what matters? It's being on the barrel in game. So I will say the one takeaway that I had from his BP was he's been putting in work offensively. Is just as far as the way the swing works. Like he's always been very static pre-pitch, and I thought there was a little more like emphasis on let's get a little fluidity going. You've got really good hands in the swing. Let's get them kind of activated, and not be so static, dead-handed. And then yeah, same guy like on the barrel. He has sneaky, jump in the thump in the barrel. And he's strong. Like he is a compact, strong individual that looks like he could do some damage like on the wrestling mat or something. Kind of given the way that he's built. But Omar Avalos, big winner, 2027. And then another 2027 that I thought, had a good all-around showing for himself was outfielder Aiden Bennett from Edwardsville. Checked off like a couple kind of above average tools across the board. Was a 719 runner, was 90 from the outfield, and then was all over the barrel in BP, with authority to both gaps. He's a stronger, mature looking prospect, but there's a lot more like present tools for Aiden Bennett than some of these other guys that we've been talking about. He may be a little closer to his ceiling than some of these other guys, but the present stuff was really good.
And then one last bat I want to touch on personally that I just thought deserved to mention for how he swung it during BP was Carson Perrell, an uncommitted 2026 out of Collinsville, just on the barrel from the right side. Just had a really good round of BP, I thought. So just wanted to mention him. I thought he was a winner for sure.
And last but not least, Keegan Sipe. We mentioned the catchers from the 2 days down there, but Keegan Sipe deserves to be on the list. Like, his body to me, frame, it keeps improving. He keeps almost getting more cut up, if that makes sense. Getting rid of some of the bulk and making it more lean, strong, quality strength. And he is ultra strong. It's noticeable in the bat. It's a very simple swing, and he creates a lot of juice off the barrel for how simple and just direct that swing is. But he averaged 88.3 off the bat, peaked at 100.3, max distance of 343. He's got that heavy barrel at times. And then I know you guys mentioned like just looked improved during bullpen settings.
Yeah.
Receiving behind the plate, and that's just another potential left-handed hitting catcher that, hey, if he can stick behind the plate, like to me, his prospect status continues to go up. And if he has to move to first, well, he's got a left-handed bat that's going to kind of warrant some notice and interest over there.